Today I'm going to talk about how to create an Amazon API Gateway API endpoint to return a mock hamster information. So Amazon API Gateway's mocking feature is very helpful. Sometimes you want to get some data from the API endpoint, but you don't have the real endpoint developed yet. So for instance, you're working with a team and that team is responsible for building a endpoint, but you don't want to wait that dependency to be finished. So you want to have some mock you can work with. That's a perfect example of you can using the API mocking feature. So in this example, I'm going to show you how we can build a hamster endpoint to get back the hamster information. If we are passing something through the URL to make a call, it will return a hamster information in 200 response if we are requesting the right hamster. If not, it's going to return a 500 to notify you there is an error. All right, so let's go to the API Gateway console in AWS. First, we're going to create a REST API. So choose REST API, click Build. In the new API, we select a new API. That's what we are going to build. The API name we can say is a mock hamster API. All right, so we're going to leave the description section empty for now. We're going to create a original API endpoint so we can test through the Postman. So it's a public API endpoint. Click Create API. It's creating. All right. So it will give you an empty API, and this is the root. The slash means root. So under it, we can create a resource. Click on Create a Resource button, and under the root, we will create our resource. We call it Hamster. We don't want to set up the course right now. Create a resource. All right. So now we have the first resource created. The next step is to create a method. So in this mock endpoint, we're going to get the hamster information. So we're going to create a get method. The method detail section, we pick get as a method type. Integration type, we're going to pick mock. So it's not really integration. So you can see the rest of integration is actually integrated with some backend to provide the data for your API endpoint. This mock actually is never leaving the API endpoint. It's mocking it on the API. All right, so we hit create method. All right, so it got created this method. We're going to make some changes to make sure it's returning the hamster information we're looking for. All right, so in the first thing first is we want to be able to pass a URL query to specify the hamster's name. All right, so we're going to go to the method request, click edit. In the URL query string parameter section, we can add a query string. We call it name. All right, so let's save it. So the method request these steps we can define quite a few things: authorizations, API key required, request validators. We don't want these for now. We want to keep it as simple as possible. So these are some like contract to defining what you are expecting from the URL call. The next is you're going to set up the integration request. So in the integration request section, we can, so by default, it will have a mapping template, has a status code equals 200. We can do update here. So what we want to say is if the URL query parameter has a name query with the correct hamster name, we're going to return a status code 200. Otherwise, we're going to return 500. So I'm going to copy and paste this handy dandy template code here. So the code is basically saying if there is a parameter URL query parameter says name, and the name equals Hammy, that's the hamster's name, we're returning 200, or otherwise we return 500. Let's save the template. In the integration response section, we can take a look here. So by default, it's returning 200, and it's just a straight pass through. All right, so we can edit in the default part. Sorry, just a second. We're going to update create the template part. Yes, that's what we want. So if it's a 200, then we're going to return the hamster's information. So we pick application/JSON as a content type because we're going to return a JSON object. In the template body, we can return the mock hamster information. So the hamster's name is our favorite hamster, Hammy. We can return the age, 1 year old. Yep, that's good enough. Let's create this template. All right, so if it's a 200, then we return the hamster's information. We need to add another response to return the 500. To do that, we first need to go to the method response. So method with response, we're going to define what the user will actually get. So by default, the user is getting a 200 response. Now we are going to create another response called 500 response. We can add a response body, application, content type same, application/JSON. It's a error model. Yeah, we can leave it as default. Save. Let's go back to the integration response. Now we are going to create a new integration response to match the 500. So now we can leverage the HTTP status regex. It will match the response status code to match the 500. We're going to use this regex expression. And it's going to be a pass-through. Okay, so for 500, we created the 500 response, integration response. Then we are going to create a template to return some wording for it. Same application/JSON, we're going to add some message. We're going to say run hamster requested. All right, going to create the template. All right, so now you can start to test how it works. Go to the test section. We can put the query string to as the name equals Hammy. Let's run test. Yes, we're getting a 200 response. We're getting the Hammy's information. It's name Hammy, age equals 1. So the reason it works is because we have the integration response. We have the integration request says if the name equals Hammy, then we return 200. All right. The integration response has the 200 mapping templates to return the hamster information, name and age. All right. Let's test a different hamster. Let's test Jane. Run test. Oh, we got a 500. Says run hamster requested because it's not Hammy, right? Okay, seems like it's working. We verified through the console test feature. We're going to do the one more step to make sure this endpoint is working in real. All right, so we're going to deploy this API. We're going to create a new stage. We can call it a dev stage. Make a deployment. Right? Yep, it takes a little bit of time, and while it's still deploying, we can first find out the invocation URL. All right, so that's the invocation URL, has the domain and the stage. So we're going to copy it, go to our favorite Postman, and we're going to specify the resource. So the resource we created is Hamster. All right, it's Hamster. We're going to put the query Hammy, name equals Hammy. Let's run test. First time, a little bit slow, but hooray, we get the correct Hammy information. Name Hammy, age 1. Let's run. Change the name to a different hamster. Let's say Tom. All right, send. Oh, wrong hamster requested. Okay, so that's concluded our mock hamster API endpoint in API Gateway. Thank you for watching. Bye.